Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Starking AM0170. This watch is available from Starking official store on AliExpress for €76. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items one gets with a piece. So the AM0170 comes in this black cardboard watch box. One pulls out the tray, and inside the watch sits on a piece of foam inside a foam cutout panel, as one would expect. Although basic, it does suffice in protecting the watch in shipping, and I think it's perfectly acceptable to use this style of watch box, bearing in mind it is a low tier price point piece at only €76. With regards to the other items, this is the international warranty card, and I'm pleased to report that this Starking watch is covered by a 12-month international warranty, which is very reassuring. One also gets a Starking price tag, and as you can see on the reverse it has the full reference number of the piece, which is the AM0170. And lastly, one also gets a Starking branded microfiber polishing cloth. I always think it's a nice touch to get a branded microfiber polishing cloth irrespective of the price point of a piece. So with regards to the specification of the Starking AM0170, 40mm case diameter. It has a 47.8mm lug-to-lug measurement, a thickness of 11.8mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to the 2-button push deploying clasp, which is hidden. One thing I really like about this piece is the use of sapphire crystal. It's always good to see sapphire crystal rather than mineral crystal, which is a cost-cutting measure, bearing in mind that this is a low-tier price point piece at only €76. I like the baton hands, they contrast very well with the black textured dial. And one thing I really like about it, which one doesn't often see, is the vertical lines which are embossed into the textured dial. They add interest to it when one tilts the piece in the light, as you can see. And the vertical lines in the textured dial are very eye-catching. Silver applied indices, which also contrast very well with the baton hands and the black dial. And it is a day-date complication piece. And I wanted to set the date's complication to Sunday, because one thing I like about the day wheel is that Sunday is in red and the other days of the week are in black, and that's a feature that Seiko use, but I would also like to see other brands use the contrasting red letters on the white date wheel, because it's clearly legible and it adds interest to the day-date complication. So it uses C3 Luminova throughout, which I will show you in the lume test. The bezel, case and bracelet, including the 2-button push deploying clasp, are all made from solid 316L grade stainless steel. And I want to give due credit to Starking, because at only €76, sometimes in the low tier one will see nickel plated zinc alloy cases which are made to look like stainless steel, but they're in fact made from alloy rather than stainless steel as a cost cutting measure. But however, I can confirm that the bezel, case, bracelet, including the clasp and crown, are all solid 316L grade stainless steel, which is very good specification. Now the negative to the sapphire crystal is there is no AR coating on the underside, and one has to expect some cost-cutting measures at this price point, but however you can see that it is a highly reflective piece. There is a lot of glare and it is a very reflective dial and applied indices and baton hands. So that's something to bear in mind if you like watches with AR coating. I would like to see Starking add AR coating to the underside of the sapphire crystal, even if that means some retail price increase. With regards to the finishing, it's one of my favourite aspects of this piece, and again I want to pay due credit to Starking because they haven't cut any corners with regards to the case polishing, bezel polishing and the quality of the finishing to the bracelet. Mirror polished outer links which contrast with the brushed satin finish centre links to the bracelet, which is rather unusual. Usually it's the opposite of that, mirror polished centre links with brushed satin finish outer links. The flanks are mirror polished to a flawless finish, and there is a hidden 2-button push deploying clasp, as you can see. Good foam resistance to the 2 spring triggers in the deploying clasp, and the deploying clasp itself is finished to a good standard, mirror polished to the top side, underside and flanks, and I like the firm resistance of the springs in the 2-button push triggers. They work very well, good positive click to both sides of the deployant. Screw down exhibition case back, which is glazed with mineral crystal. Mirror polished to a flawless finish, nicely engraved with the specification of the piece, and it does a good job of displaying the movement used, which is the Miyota caliber 8205 movement, made in Japan. So this is the gilded version of the 8205. Miyota also make it in a silver version. Personally, I like the gilded version. It's undecorated, but it does add interest to it, the gilded bridges and also sunburst finish to the gilded rotor. So with regards to the specification of the movements, the 8205 is made in Japan. It has 21 joules. It runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. It has hand winding, but the negative is it doesn't have hacking. So if you like to set your watches to the second by hacking the movement and stopping the second hand, that is something to bear in mind. The movement does hand wind, but it doesn't hack. The other negative is it has a unidirectional rotor, and if you look closely at the rotor, you will see there is an arrow direction, and that arrow direction is the direction of winding. The Miyota Caliber 8205 only winds when the rotor spins anti-clockwise. When the rotor spins clockwise, it has a negligible winding effect. Personally, I prefer automatic movements to have bidirectional winding rotors because they're more efficient. It is a negative that this only winds when it runs anti-clockwise rather than clockwise, but however, on a positive note, it does have a 42-hour power reserve, which is perfectly acceptable. The stated accuracy is -20 to +40 seconds per day, which is a rather wide accuracy range, but however, I'm pleased to report that this one has been well regulated to +10 seconds per day, which is perfectly acceptable. So good, solid, reliable, well-proven workhorse movement, although it lacks hacking and it isn't as efficient because it has a unidirectional rotor as I've discussed. So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now I haven't sized the bracelet, I've simply taken the watch out of the watch box and I'm pleased to report that it fits my 8-inch wrist with no difficulty whatsoever. I can in fact slide an index finger under the 2-button push to point clasp, so this will actually fit up to an 8.5-inch wrist with no difficulty whatsoever. So the 2-button push hidden deployment is very well finished, as you can see. The 2 triggers are recessed under the flanks of the bracelet, so one isn't going to accidentally activate the 2-button push triggers and open the bracelet inadvertently. Slight taper to the 20mm bracelet down to the 2-button push deployment clasp, and they've got the proportions just right. I like the slender taper of the lugs. The proportions really are very good. Feel good factor is excellent, and also the comfort level is excellent. So it's an ideal daily wear piece to wear for long periods of time, and I also think it could be further enhanced if one wore it on a leather strap as an alternative to the solid 316L grade stainless steel bracelet. So the 40mm case balances the 20mm lug width very well, and I also like the fact it's relatively low profile at only 11.8mm with a flat sapphire crystal and flat mineral crystal in the exhibition case back. So this is easily going to slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. I also think it's a practical piece because of the day-date complication. So really this is the ideal daily wear piece under €100. It really would meet all the requirements one could have. Comfortable, good looking piece, and as I've discussed, I really like the vertical lines in the textured dial. They do add interest. Really the only main negative is the lack of AR coating. As you can see, it is highly reflective and there is a lot of glare, but it is finished to a very high standard. The mirror polishing and the brushed satin finishing to the tops of the lugs and the centre links are done to a very high standard. So nicely finished piece throughout. Right, so let's test the crown action. Now, this uses a push-pull crown rather than a screw-down crown, which is perfectly acceptable. At this price point, it provides an effective hermetic seal to 30 meters. It's a knurled finished crown and signed with the Starking brand emblem to a high standard. So, this movement has hand winding, but it doesn't hack. As you can see, when I pull out the crown to the final position, the second hand keeps running, it doesn't hack. But however, setting the time is very smooth. The Caliber 8205 is a very reliable, well-proven workhorse movement. So I'm just going to pull it out to the first click and show you the day-date complication. So it has a quick set day complication and also a quick set date complication. The day and date wheels are both bilingual in Mandarin and also English, as you can see. And very smooth operation to the quick set day. So to advance the day complication, one rotates the crown clockwise, and to advance the date complication, one rotates the crown anti-clockwise, as you can see. So it works very well. Good positive click when one pushes it back in, and really the only negative is the lack of hacking, but one can hand wind it to top up the power reserve to its maximum 42 hours. Right, so let's do a lume test and we'll see how the lume performs when it's charged up to its absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to its absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it is acceptable. It uses C3 Luminova. Personally, I would prefer to see C3 Super Luminova for better performance, and that is something I would like to see Starking do. I'd like to see them upgrade the quality of the lume, even if that means a production cost increase and therefore a retail cost increase. I would describe it as okay. It's glowing to an okay standard, and it's also continuing to glow for an okay length of time. There is room for improvements, but unfortunately this is the trade-off when one uses Luminova, and also the indices are quite small, and also the baton hands don't allow for great plots of lume to be applied. So Starking could improve this piece if they increased the size of the applied indices and also scaled up the proportion of the baton hands, and that would therefore allow greater plots of Luminova, more layers to be applied, which would make it glow brighter and therefore glow for a longer length of time. So it's okay, but there is room for improvement. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet two criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So at €76, this is a low tier piece, and I feel that Starking deserve credit for producing an excellent quality and excellent value piece at that price point. The quality of the case finishing and polishing throughout is flawless. It really is done to a very high standard, the kind of finishing one would expect to see on a mid-tier piece. There's a lovely luster to the 316L grade stainless steel. Sapphire crystal is very good, and it does use a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement in the Miyota Caliber 8205, which is made in Japan. But however, there are some shortcomings: the lack of AR coating, and also the fact that the rotor is only unidirectional winding, and these are things that one needs to consider. But however, one has to expect some cost-cutting measures, bearing in mind the price point. Overall, I think it is an outstanding watch, and I like the features such as the screw-down exhibition case back, solid end links and solid links in the bracelet. So I'm going to declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money, and I'm going to highly recommend it to you for your consideration. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Starking AM0170. Please feel free to post your comments below the video. Thank you very much.